And now we welcome yourselves to round 14 episode of Lachie's Weekly Footy Roundup. First up, we'll be reviewing round 13. Western Bulldogs versus Hawthorn at Marvel Stadium. Hawks won by 22 points. Well, after the game, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese showed up in Hawthorn's change rooms cheering on his team. Let's look at the player stats for this one. Well, Tim English really dominated in a losing side for the Dogs with 20 disposals and 31 headouts. Matthew Kennedy, 29 disposals and a goal. Been a very good pickup this season after he left Carlton. It's been really a ruck battle between English and Meek. As for Hawthorn, well, Chol and Jenovan were amongst the goals for 6 each. And next game, we got Crows versus Brisbane at Adelaide Oval. What a game that was! Crows by 5 points. I was at that game on Friday night with Zach. It looked like Brisbane were going to win that game up until the last quarter. Once Ben Keys kicked that goal, once Josh Rochelle kicked that goal, Adelaide took the lead. It was a cold, rainy night at Adelaide Oval. Well, the best player on the ground really was Will Ashcroft, with 31 disposals and 334 metres gained. And the next game, we go to the MCG. Richmond, 4 goals, 12. Richmond, what is going on with the Tigers? They were in front in the first quarter against Sydney. And then the Swans really ran away with it after that. No fight. Well, looks like the Richmond reserves need to show some fight next week, in 2 weeks' time against the Western Bulldogs, if they want to get themselves some respect. While for next game, we got Geelong versus, well, the Gold Coast reserves at GMHBA Stadium. Geelong got the win by 24 points. It was basically a dominant show for the Cats. Gold Coast, they are now 1-1. We're in the pink. Next game on Saturday night, we got Port Adelaide versus GWS at Manuka Oval in Canberra. Well, Port Adelaide by 16 points. Even though Port had led all throughout the second half, GWS gave them a bit of a scare. But it was all too little too late after that. West Coast versus North Melbourne over at Hands Oval in South Bunbury. On the south coast of WA, we got, well, West Coast led throughout the third quarter until Cam Zerha kicked the winning goal in the last quarter to give North Melbourne a 10-point triumph. Next up, we go to the MCG for Carlton and Essendon. Carlton wins 78-70, even though they led by 40-7 at quarter time. It's been that was a rough first quarter for the Bombers, but they got it together after quarter time, but it was all too late at the end. And on the Monday, the King's birthday, Melbourne and Collingwood, 71-72 Collingwood. What a game that was. Well, if Melbourne did not concede that rush behind, they would have snatched it. The hero for this one was Dan McStay, who kicked his second goal to give Collingwood a victory that they famously for winning close games. There is a fun fact for this one: no team has scored 100 in this round. Now for the ladder after round 13. Well, it's looking like it's a bad week for Queensland. Brisbane are still second, but they're it's starting to come nowhere near Collingwood. And Gold Coast have fallen off to 5th. While for first we got Collingwood, they're still on top. Third is Adelaide, 9-4. And 4th is Geelong. They're both looking very good right now. Hawthorn are back on track at 6th. GWS are currently 7th. Fremantle are sitting 8th after beating the bye. 9th is the Western Bulldogs, 6-6. 10th is Essendon, also 6-6. Carlton jump up the ladder after beating the Bombers. Saints move down the ladder after losing to the bye. Sydney are 13th and Melbourne 14th. Well, no change at Port Adelaide, 15. North Melbourne 16th. Oh dear, what's going on at Richmond? 17th. Well, and West Coast are bottom. Well, those three better call flights are on now before it's too late. Lowest airfares are guaranteed. And now we go to the predictions for round 14. Thursday night, we got the rematch of the Saints Bulldogs game I went to back early in the year. And I remember running into Carman 22 for that game. I'm sorry, Cardman. I'm so sorry, brother. I'm going to have to go with the Bulldogs by 64 points. Hawks and Crows at the end at Utah Stadium in Launceston. It's a close game. I reckon the Crows might get up by 11 points. Brisbane and GWS at the Gabba. I reckon the Lions might regain second after this one with a 27-point win. Essendon and Geelong at the MCG. Well, if Essendon can start off very bad against Carlton, I don't know how they're going to go against an informed Geelong. That's why I'm going with the Cats by 60 points. North Melbourne and Fremantle at Optus Stadium. North Melbourne's first home game at Optus. And I reckon the Dockers will get up by 50. And there's two more games in the round. Port of Melbourne and Adelaide Oval. I'm going with, I reckon the Power might get up to this one by 2 points. West Coast and Carlton at Optus Stadium in Perth. I'm going with the Blues by 40 points. While Collingwood, Gold Coast, Sydney and Richmond are all versing the bye this week. And that will just about wrap up round 14, and next episode we are off to round 15.